The slap never landed. It stopped in the air, frozen, because the new maid's hand was holding the billionaire's wife's wrist. Not gently, not politely, firm. Like someone had finally grabbed fear itself and told it, enough. Everyone in the living room stopped breathing. The chandelier above them still glowed like a crown of diamonds, but the light suddenly felt cold. The marble floor reflected their faces, wide eyes, open mouths, hands covering lips. Even the wall clock seemed louder than before. Mrs. Ivy Okafor, the billionaire's wife, stood in the center of the room like a queen who had never been questioned. Her gown was expensive. Her perfume filled the air. Her eyes were sharp, the kind of eyes that made grown men look away. Her right hand was raised high, and right below it, trembling on her knees, was Jamu, the elderly gatekeeper who had worked in the mansion since before some of the maids were even born. His cap had fallen off, his eyes were wet, his shoulders shook like a child's. Mrs. Evie's voice cut through the silence. "You want to steal under my roof," she snapped, loud enough for the house to hear. "After everything you've eaten here, you still have the mouth to be a thief." "I didn't take it," Jamu whispered. His voice was small. "Madam, I swear. I didn't." "Shut up," Mrs. Ivy roared. "You think your old age will save you? You think tears will wash away shame?" She turned to the staff, lined up by the doorway, maids in matching uniforms, drivers standing stiff, a cook clutching her apron, and security men trying not to blink. "You!" Mrs. Ivy pointed at a young maid. "Bring the cane." The maid flinched and rushed away. Jamu's lips shook. "Madam, please." Mrs. Evie stepped closer. Her shadow fell over him. "I will teach you a lesson you will never forget," she said, and her hand rose again. That was when the new maid moved. She came out from behind the row of workers, quiet, plain, almost invisible until that moment. Her name was Zara. She was barely 19. Slim, dark-skinned, soft eyes. Her clothes were not like the others. While everyone wore neat uniforms, Zara still had on the plain brown dress she arrived in, faded, clean but worn, like something a person would keep because they had nothing else. Her hair was packed into a simple bun. No jewelry, no makeup, nothing fancy. Yet she walked straight to Mrs. Evie like she was walking into sunlight. And before anyone could stop her, before any guard could shout, Zara reached up and grabbed Mrs. Evie's wrist. A sharp breath ran through the room like wind. Mrs. Evie's eyes widened. "What did you just do?" she whispered, like she wasn't sure it was real. Zara didn't shout. She didn't insult her. She didn't even look angry. She looked calm. "Please," Zara said, her voice steady but respectful. "Don't hit him." The room nearly collapsed under those words. "Don't hit him." Simple words, but no one had ever spoken to Mrs. Evie like that. Not in this house. Not ever. Mrs. Ivy's mouth opened slowly, like she was tasting the air. Then her face twisted. "Remove your hand," she hissed. Zara did not remove it. Instead, Zara looked down at Jamu. Then she looked back at Mrs. Evie. "Madam," Zara said, "if he stole something, call the police. Check the cameras, search him, but don't shame him like this." The cooks gasped. The head maid, Mrs. Bisi, almost fainted. Her eyes screamed, "Zara, are you mad?" A driver whispered, "Ah, this girl is finished." But Zara stood there, still holding that wrist. Mrs. Evie's voice rose to a dangerous sweetness. "So you are the new maid?" "Yes, ma," Zara replied. "And you are telling me what to do in my house?" "No, ma," Zara said quickly. "I'm asking you to stop." Mrs. Evie pulled her wrist, trying to yank it free. Zara held tighter. Not rude, not violent, just unmovable. Mrs. Evie's eyes turned even darker. "You want to be a hero?" she asked slowly. "In front of everyone?" Zara's throat moved like she swallowed fear, but she didn't step back. "No, ma," she said. "I just don't want you to hurt him." That was when Mrs. Ivy smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile people saw right before they got fired. "Do you know what I do to people who embarrass me?" she asked. Zara hesitated. The other staff were shaking. Mrs. Evie leaned closer, lowering her voice like poison. "I break them," she said. "I break their jobs. I break their pride. I break their future." Then she raised her free hand and snapped her fingers at the security men. "Hold her." 2 guards stepped forward immediately. Zara's eyes flashed. She looked around, and for the first time, her calm cracked just a little. Not into fear, but into urgency. "Please don't," she said. But the guards were already reaching for her arms. The head maid, Mrs. BC, rushed forward, almost crying. "Madam, please. She is new. She doesn't understand." "Shut up," Mrs. Ivy shouted. "All of you are fools. That's why you stay under me. You want to talk? Talk now. Talk like her." No one spoke. The guards grabbed Zara's arms. Zara didn't scream. She didn't struggle like a wild person. She simply looked straight at Mrs. Ivy, and her voice became even quieter, almost like a secret. "If you punish me," Zara said, "you will punish the wrong person." Mrs. Ivy blinked. "What did you say?" Zara lifted her chin. "I said," Zara repeated, "you will punish the wrong person." Mrs. Ivy's eyes narrowed. "Wrong person?" Zara turned her head slightly, just enough to look at the tall mirror beside the stairs. The mirror reflected everyone. The maids, the guards, Jamiu still on his knees, and at the edge of the mirror, a man's reflection, a man standing in the hallway. He was wearing a dark suit. His shoulders were broad. His face was hard to read. The billionaire, Mr. Okafor. No one had noticed him come in, but he was there now, silent as a shadow. The room froze again, even worse than before. Mrs. Ivy's face changed in a blink. Not fear, not surprise, something else. Something like panic, hidden under anger. "Honey," she said quickly, turning, her voice suddenly sweet. "You're home early." Mr. Okafor didn't answer at first. He stepped forward slowly, like he was walking into a story he did not like. His eyes went to Jamiu on his knees. Then to the cane someone had dropped on the floor. Then to Zara being held by guards. Then to his wife. "What is happening?" His voice was calm but heavy, the kind of calm that came before a storm. Mrs. Ivy smiled again, too fast. "This old man was stealing," she said, "and this girl wants to defend him." She grabbed my hand in front of everyone. Mr. Okafor looked at Zara. Zara met his eyes. Her lips trembled now, not because she was weak, but because this was the moment she had been waiting for. "Sir," she said softly, "Jamiu didn't steal anything." Mrs. Ivy's head snapped toward her. "Keep quiet." But Zara continued, still looking at the billionaire. "Sir," she said, "I saw what happened." Mr. Okafor's eyebrows lifted slightly. Mrs. Ivy stepped forward fast. "Are you calling me a liar in my own house?" Zara turned to Mrs. Ivy, and for the first time, she did something no staff member had ever dared to do. She looked Mrs. Ivy straight in the eyes. Not with hate, with truth. "Madam," Zara said, "the missing gold bracelet, it didn't fall. It didn't get stolen." Mrs. Ivy's smile faded. The staff held their breath. Zara's voice remained calm, but her next words landed like thunder. "It was planted." Silence. Deep, thick silence. Mrs. Ivy's eyes went wide for half a second, then narrowed sharply. Mr. Okafor's face hardened. "Planted?" he repeated. Zara nodded once. "Yes, sir." Mrs. Ivy laughed loud and forced. "This is nonsense. You are a new maid. You want to create trouble." But Zara didn't back down. "I'm new," Zara agreed, "but I'm not blind." Mrs. Ivy's voice turned icy. "Who planted it?" Zara inhaled. The whole mansion seemed to lean forward. Zara's eyes moved from Mrs. Ivy to the corner of the room, to the person standing behind the cook. A slim young woman with shiny earrings and a tight smile. One of Mrs. Ivy's favorite staff members. Her personal assistant in the house. A woman everyone feared almost as much as Mrs. Ivy. Her name was Efe. Efe's smile dropped when she saw Zara's eyes on her. Zara raised her chin. "It was her," Zara said, pointing, and Efe's face turned pale. Mrs. Ivy's head whipped toward Efe like lightning. "What?" Efe stammered. "Madam, I don't know what she's saying." But Zara's voice stayed steady. "I saw you," Zara said. "When you came in earlier, you held the bracelet in your hand. You looked around, then you slipped it into Jamiu's side pocket while he was sweeping near the couch." A sound left someone's mouth, half gasp, half cry. Jamiu lifted his head slowly, eyes huge. The guards holding Zara loosened their grip without realizing. Mr. Okafor took one slow step forward. His voice was low. "Efe." Effe's eyes darted around like a trapped animal. Mrs. Evie's face looked like stone. "Search his pocket," Mr. Okafor ordered quietly. One guard moved quickly, reached into Jamiu's pocket, and pulled out a gold bracelet that glittered under the chandelier. A bracelet with a big ruby stone. The staff gasped loudly. Jamiu began to cry, shaking his head. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Mr. Okafor stared at the bracelet. Then he stared at Efe. Efe's lips trembled. Mrs. Evie spoke fast, her voice tight. "This proves nothing. She could have put it there herself. She is lying." But Mr. Okafor didn't look at his wife. He looked at Zara. "Why would she do that?" he asked, calm but dangerous. Zara opened her mouth to answer. But before she could speak, Efe suddenly screamed, "Madam told me to do it." The words exploded in the room. Everyone froze. Mrs. Evie's head snapped toward Efe. Her voice dropped to a whisper that sounded like a knife. "Efe." Efe began to cry. "Madam, please, I didn't want to. You said you wanted an example. You said you were tired of the staff getting comfortable." Mrs. Ivy's face went blank. Mr. Okafor's eyes darkened like night. Zara stood still, her heart pounding, because she knew this was bigger than a bracelet. Much bigger. Because as Efe cried, she added one more sentence, one sentence that made Zara's stomach twist. "And Madam said, if Jamiu refuses to confess, we will use the other thing." Mr. Okafor's voice sharpened. "What other thing?" Efe covered her mouth like she had said too much. Mrs. Evie stepped forward quickly. "Enough," she snapped. "Stop talking." But the billionaire's voice cut through hers like steel. "Ivy," he said softly. "What other thing?" Mrs. Ivy's eyes flashed with fury. Zara felt the room tipping into something dangerous. Then Mrs. Evie turned slowly toward Zara, and she smiled again. This time, the smile looked like a warning. "You," Mrs. Evie said, voice low. "You think you just saved someone?" Zara's throat tightened. Mrs. Evie took one step closer. "You have no idea what you just started." And in that moment, Zara noticed something she hadn't noticed before. Mrs. Ivy's hand was shaking. Not from anger, from fear, as if Zara had touched a secret that was never meant to be touched. Mr. Okafor stepped between them slightly, but Mrs. Ivy's eyes stayed locked on Zara, burning. Then she said the quietest, scariest words of the night. "Bring her to my room." Now, the guards hesitated. Mr. Okafor's jaw tightened. Zara's heart slammed in her chest, because she suddenly understood something awful. Mrs. Ivy wasn't just angry. She was desperate. And whatever secret Zara had opened tonight, Mrs. Evie was ready to do anything to bury it, even if it meant making the new maid disappear. As the guards reached for Zara again, Mr. Okafor finally spoke, one sharp command that stopped everyone mid-motion. "Don't touch her." And Mrs. Evie turned slowly to face her husband, eyes blazing, and asked, "Are you choosing a maid over your own wife?" The room stayed frozen after Mr. Okafor's words. "Don't touch her." The guards stopped mid-step, hands hovering in the air like they had forgotten what to do next. One of them slowly dropped his grip from Zara's arm. Another cleared his throat and stepped back. Mrs. Evie stared at her husband as if she had never seen him before. "Are you mad?" she asked, her voice sharp but shaking underneath. "You are embarrassing me in front of staff." Mr. Okafor didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. That made it worse. "I asked everyone to step out," he said calmly. "Now." The staff looked at Mrs. Evie, then back at him. No one moved. "I said now," he repeated. That was all it took. The cooks rushed out. The drivers bowed and left. The maids hurried away, pulling each other by the hands. Even the guards stepped back toward the walls. Jamiu was helped to his feet and guided toward the servants' quarters, still shaking, still crying. Within seconds, the grand living room that once echoed with fear became empty. Empty except for 4 people. Mr. Okafor, Mrs. Ivy, Zara, and Efe, standing stiff like a statue, tears drying on her face. The doors closed softly behind the staff. The silence that followed was heavy. Mr. Okafor turned to Efe first. "You," he said. "Speak carefully." Efe's lips trembled. "Sir, I was only following instructions." Mrs. Ivy laughed suddenly, sharp and loud. "Instructions? From who? Me? Don't be stupid." Efe flinched. "Madam, you said—" "I said nothing." Mrs. Ivy snapped. You are trying to save yourself. Mr. Okafor raised a hand. That's enough, he said. Then he looked at Effa. Leave. Effa's head snapped up. Sir? Leave, he repeated. Go to your room. Don't step out unless I call for you. Effa didn't wait for more. She rushed out like someone escaping fire. Now there were three. Mrs. Evie turned slowly toward Zara. You, she said softly, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You think you are brave. Zara swallowed. Mr. Okafor stepped forward slightly, putting himself between them again. Zara, he said, how long have you been working here? Today is my third day, sir, she replied. And in 3 days, Mrs. Evie cut in. You've turned my house upside down. Mr. Okafor ignored her. Why did you come here? He asked Zara. Zara hesitated. This was not the question she feared. This was worse. She looked down at her hands. They were still shaking. I needed the job, she said honestly. My aunt brought me. Mrs. Evie scoffed. Of course. Another poor girl looking for food. Zara looked up slowly. Yes, madam, she said. I was looking for food, but not at the cost of my conscience. The word conscience landed like a slap. Mrs. Evie's smile vanished. Mr. Okafor studied Zara's face carefully, like he was trying to read a book he had never opened before. You said you saw everything, he said. Why didn't you speak earlier? Zara took a breath. Because people warned me, she said quietly. They told me to stay invisible. They told me if I spoke, I would lose my job. Or worse. Mrs. Evie's eyes narrowed. And yet you spoke. Zara nodded. Because what was happening was wrong. Silence again. Mr. Okafor turned to his wife. Ivy, he said slowly. Is this how you run this house? Mrs. Evie laughed, folding her arms. So now you're questioning me? After all these years? I'm asking, he replied, because I'm hearing things tonight that I don't like. She walked toward him, heels clicking on the marble floor. I keep order, she said. That's what I do. Without fear, this house will fall apart. Fear, he repeated. Or cruelty. Her eyes flashed. You weren't here. You were busy building your empire. Someone had to control things. Mr. Okafor's jaw tightened. Zara watched them, heart pounding. This was not just about a maid anymore. This was something older, deeper. I never told you to humiliate people, Mr. Okafor said. Mrs. Ivy's voice dropped. You never told me not to. That sentence hung in the air like smoke. Mr. Okafor turned away from her and looked at Zara again. Why defend Jammu? He asked. You barely know him. Zara hesitated, then spoke. Because he reminds me of my father. Mrs. Evie froze. Mr. Okafor turned fully toward Zara. Explain. Zara's voice softened. My father was a gatekeeper too. He worked for a big man. He was loyal, honest. But one day, he was accused of stealing. Mrs. Evie's fingers tightened around her arm. No one listened to him, Zara continued. He was beaten, shamed, thrown out. He came home sick, and he never recovered. The room felt colder. That night, Zara said, eyes shining, I promised myself that if I ever saw something like that again, I would not stay silent. Mrs. Evie laughed bitterly. So you came here to fight your past? No, Zara replied calmly. I came here to work. But I won't watch people get destroyed for no reason. Mr. Okafor exhaled slowly. Mrs. Evie stepped forward again, this time closer to Zara. You think you are strong, she said quietly. But this house eats people like you. Mr. Okafor turned sharply. That's enough, Ivy. She ignored him. You have no idea who you are dealing with, she said to Zara. You don't know my power. Zara met her gaze. I know, Zara said softly. That's why everyone is afraid. Mrs. Evie raised her hand again, not to slap, but to point. Leave this house, she said. Now. Mr. Okafor snapped. You can't fire her like that. Mrs. Ivy turned on him. Watch me. Zara's heart dropped. But before fear could take over, Mr. Okafor spoke. No, he said firmly. She stays. Mrs. Ivy stared at him. What? She stays, he repeated. At least until I understand what's really going on in this house. Mrs. Ivy's laugh was sharp and cold. So you believe her over me? I believe something is wrong, he said. And I won't ignore it. Mrs. Ivy's eyes burned. You are choosing her. I am choosing truth, he replied. Mrs. Evie took a slow step back. Then she smiled. Not the angry smile. Not the fake one. A dangerous smile. Fine, she said softly. Let her stay. Zara felt a chill. Mrs. Ivy turned and walked toward the stairs, her gown flowing behind her like a shadow. But don't forget, she added without turning back, this house has rules. She paused at the bottom of the stairs and glanced over her shoulder at Zara. And rules have consequences. She walked upstairs and disappeared. The silence she left behind was heavier than before. Mr. Okafor turned to Zara. You should be careful, he said quietly. You've made an enemy. Zara nodded. I know, sir. He studied her face. But you also showed courage, he added. And courage always has a price. Zara swallowed. I'm ready to pay it. Mr. Okafor sighed. Go and rest. Tomorrow, we talk. Zara bowed slightly and turned to leave. As she walked down the hallway, her legs felt weak, but her heart felt steady. She had survived tonight. But she didn't know one thing. Upstairs, behind a locked door, Mrs. Ivy stood in front of her mirror, breathing hard. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a small brown envelope. Inside were old documents, photos, names, secrets. She whispered to herself, voice trembling with rage. That girl has seen too much. Then she picked up her phone and dialed a number she had not called in years. We have a problem, she said quietly. And this time, we can't scare it away. She looked at her reflection and smiled. Tomorrow, the new maid would learn the real cost of courage. As Zara lay on her narrow bed that night, staring at the ceiling, a soft knock came at her door, 3 slow taps. Before she could answer, a note slid under the door. It held just 4 words. Zara stared at the note for a long time. You should leave tonight. The words felt heavier than they looked. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the paper from the floor. The handwriting was neat, careful, like someone who didn't want to be noticed. Her heart began to beat faster. Who sent it? She glanced at the door, half expecting someone to be standing there. But the hallway outside was quiet. Too quiet. Zara slowly stood up from her bed and locked the door. Then she sat back down, holding the note tightly in her hand. She thought of Jamiu's shaking knees. She thought of Ife's broken voice. She thought of Mrs. Ivy's smile. Fear crawled up her spine. For the first time since she arrived at the mansion, Zara wondered if she had made a mistake. But just as fear tried to win, another thought pushed back. If I leave now, nothing changes. She folded the note and hid it under her pillow. I won't run, she whispered to herself. Morning came quietly, too quietly. Usually, by sunrise, the servants' quarters were filled with soft voices, footsteps, and the smell of food. But that morning, the air felt tense. People moved carefully, like they were walking on glass. When Zara stepped outside, conversations stopped. Maids avoided her eyes. Some looked at her with pity. Others looked at her with fear, as if standing too close to her could bring trouble. Mrs. Bissy, the head maid, pulled Zara aside near the laundry area. Zara, she whispered urgently. What you did last night was brave. But bravery doesn't live long in this house. Zara nodded. Someone told me to leave. Mrs. Bissy's eyes widened. You got a note too? Too? Zara asked. Mrs. Bissy looked around quickly before speaking. You're not the first, she said. Anyone who ever questioned Madam got a warning. Some listened, some didn't. Zara's chest tightened. What happened to those who didn't? Mrs. Bissy hesitated. Some were fired, she said slowly. Some left suddenly. And some, her voice dropped. Some stories don't have endings. Zara swallowed. Before she could ask more, a sharp voice echoed through the hallway. Zara. Everyone froze. It was F.A. She stood near the stairs, dressed neatly as always, but her eyes looked tired, nervous. Madam wants to see you, Ife said. Mrs. Bissy grabbed Zara's wrist. Don't go alone. I don't have a choice, Zara replied gently. As Zara followed F.A. upstairs, the walls seemed closer than before. Every step felt like walking into a trap. They reached Mrs. Evie's private sitting room. F.A. knocked once and opened the door. Mrs. Evie was seated on a velvet chair, sipping tea calmly, like nothing had happened the night before. Her hair was perfect. Her face was relaxed. You may leave, Mrs. Evie told F.A. F.A. hesitated, then left, closing the door behind her. Zara stood alone. Sit, Mrs. Ivy said. Zara remained standing. Mrs. Ivy smiled, still pretending to be strong. I'm not pretending, Zara replied quietly. Mrs. Ivy placed her cup down. You embarrassed me, she said. In front of my staff. In front of my husband. I spoke the truth, Zara said. Mrs. Ivy laughed softly. Truth is only useful when it belongs to the powerful. She stood and walked closer. Do you know why I rule this house? Mrs. Ivy asked. Because weakness invites chaos. Zara lifted her head. Fear invites silence. Mrs. Ivy's smile faded. You think my husband will save you? She asked. He won't always be here. Zara said nothing. Mrs. Ivy leaned closer, her voice low and sharp. Leave quietly, she whispered. Disappear, and I will forget you ever existed. Zara felt her heart pound, but she didn't step back. And if I don't? She asked. Mrs. Ivy straightened. Then you will regret it. Zara took a breath. I won't leave, she said. Not while innocent people suffer. For a brief second, Mrs. Ivy looked stunned. Then she smiled again. Very well, she said. Let's see how long you last. Later that day, Mr. Okafor called for a private meeting. Zara was shocked when she saw who was present. Mrs. Ivy, F.A., Mrs. Bisi, 2 senior guards, and Jamu. Jamu looked nervous but stronger than before. I reviewed the security footage, Mr. Okafor said calmly. Mrs. Ivy's face didn't change. The camera near the couch was off, he continued. That's normal, Mrs. Ivy replied. Old wiring. Mr. Okafor nodded slowly. But the hallway camera worked, he said. And it showed F.A. walking toward Jamu, holding the bracelet. F.A. gasped. Mrs. Ivy turned sharply. What? Mr. Okafor looked at his wife. Explain. Mrs. Ivy laughed lightly. You believe a camera over your wife? Mr. Okafor's eyes hardened. I believe evidence. Effa dropped to her knees. I'm sorry, she cried. Madam told me. Enough, Mrs. Ivy shouted. The room went silent. Mr. Okafor looked deeply disappointed. Effa, he said, you're suspended. Ife burst into tears. Mrs. Ivy stepped forward. You're making a mistake. Maybe, Mr. Okafor replied, but I'm tired of silence. Mrs. Ivy turned to Zara, her eyes burning. This is your doing. Zara met her gaze. No, it's the truths. Mr. Okafor dismissed everyone except Zara. As the others left, he turned to her. You should be careful, he said again. Ivy is not someone you challenge lightly. Zara nodded. I know, but I won't stop, she added. Mr. Okafor sighed. Sometimes courage needs wisdom too. That evening, as Zara returned to her room, something felt wrong. Her door was slightly open. She stepped inside slowly. Her small bag was on the floor. Her clothes were scattered. Someone had searched her room. Her heart raced. Then she saw it. On her bed was the brown envelope Mrs. Ivy had held the night before. Zara froze. She slowly opened it. Inside were photos, old photos. Her father, standing at a gate, wearing the same uniform Jamu wore. Her breath caught. A note fell from the envelope. It read, ***, your past is closer than you think. ***. Zara's knees gave way as she sat on the bed. Her hands shook. How did Mrs. Ivy know about her father? And why was she bringing this up now? Before Zara could think further, footsteps sounded outside her door. Slow, deliberate. Then a voice she recognized whispered from the hallway, You should have left. The doorknob began to turn. As the door creaked open, Zara realized the truth was no longer chasing her. It had caught up. The door opened fully. Zara's breath caught in her throat. Standing in the doorway was not Mrs. Ivy. It was Mrs. Bisi. The head maid looked pale, her eyes wide with fear. She stepped inside quickly and shut the door behind her, locking it. Thank God, Zara whispered. I know, Mrs. Bisi said softly. I saw someone coming down this hallway. I followed quietly. Zara's knees still felt weak. She held up the brown envelope. She knows about my father, Zara said. How? Mrs. Bisi's face tightened. Because your father's story is part of this house, she said. Zara stared at her. What do you mean? Mrs. Bisi sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, like someone carrying a heavy secret. Your father worked here, she said. Not in this mansion, but in the old house before this one was built. Zara's heart began to pound. He was accused of stealing too, Mrs. Bisi continued. A watch. A very expensive one. Zara's throat burned. That's what ruined him. Yes, Mrs. Bisi said. But he didn't steal it. Zara's eyes filled with tears. I know. Mrs. Bisi nodded. The watch was planted. Just like the bracelet. Zara covered her mouth. Madame Ivy was younger then, Mrs. Bisi said. Newly married, hungry for control. She wanted to prove she could run the house while Olga was always away. Zara shook her head slowly. And my father? He refused to confess, Mrs. Bisi said. So she made an example of him. Zara's chest tightened so hard it hurt. He was dismissed in shame, Mrs. Bisi went on. No benefits, no apology. And the truth was buried. Zara's hands clenched into fists. So she recognized my name, Zara whispered. That's why she hates me. Mrs. Bisi looked at her sadly. She is afraid of you. Zara laughed bitterly. I'm just a maid. No, Mrs. Bisi said firmly. You are a reminder. They both jumped when footsteps passed outside the door. Mrs. Bisi lowered her voice. Listen carefully. Madame Evie is desperate now. When she feels cornered, she becomes dangerous. Zara nodded. She warned me. Mrs. Bisi stood up. Then we must be smarter. That evening, the mansion buzzed with quiet tension. Mr. Okafor had not left the house all day. That alone made the staff uneasy. He moved from room to room, asking questions. Simple questions. Honest ones. How long have you worked here? Have you ever been punished unfairly? Have you ever been accused of something you didn't do? Some staff cried. Some hesitated. Some spoke in whispers. Fear began to crack. Mrs. Ivy watched from a distance, her smile tight, her eyes sharp. She pulled Effie aside later that night. You are useless, Mrs. Ivy hissed. You let a girl destroy years of control. Effie trembled. Madam, please. I did everything you asked. Mrs. Ivy leaned closer. Then you will fix it. How? Effie whispered. Mrs. Ivy straightened. You will give them something bigger to worry about. That night, the power went out. Not just in the mansion. Only in the servants' quarters. Darkness swallowed the hallway. Zara sat up in bed, heart racing. Then she smelled smoke. Her door suddenly felt hot. She jumped up and rushed to it. The handle burned her palm. Fire. Someone had set fire to the hallway. Help! Someone screamed outside. Zara grabbed a wet towel and wrapped it around her hand, forcing the door open. Smoke rushed in. Maids were running, crying, coughing. Zara helped pull one girl up who had fallen. Go, Zara shouted. Follow the exit. She turned back and froze. At the end of the hallway, through the smoke, she saw a figure, standing still, watching. The glow of flames reflected in her eyes. Mrs. Evie. Zara's heart dropped. This wasn't an accident. This was a warning. Suddenly, strong arms grabbed Zara from behind and pulled her back. Mr. Okafor. Are you mad? He shouted over the chaos. You could have died. Fire alarms blared as guards rushed in. Zara coughed, eyes burning. I saw her, Zara said hoarsely. She did this. Mr. Okafor looked toward the smoke-filled hallway. Mrs. Evie was gone. By morning, the fire was out. The damage was small, but the message was loud. The servants' quarters smelled of smoke and fear. Mr. Okafor stood in the living room, his face dark. This has gone too far, he said. Mrs. Evie sat calmly across from him. You think I would burn my own house? She asked lightly. He stared at her. People could have died. But they didn't, she replied. And now everyone is talking about safety. Not bracelets. Zara stood nearby, wrapped in a blanket, listening. Mrs. Ivy turned to her. You see, she said softly. Accidents happen. Zara met her gaze. So does truth, she replied. Mrs. Evie smiled thinly. That afternoon, Mr. Okafor received a call. His face changed as he listened. He looked at Zara. Someone from the old estate records office, he said. They found something. Mrs. Ivy stiffened. What? She asked quickly. Mr. Okafor's eyes locked onto hers. Records of past staff dismissals, he said, including a gatekeeper, wrongfully accused. Zara's breath caught. Mr. Okafor continued slowly, each word heavy. And a pattern. Mrs. Ivy stood abruptly. This is nonsense. Mr. Okafor didn't look away. The truth is coming out, Ivy. Her hands clenched. You won't destroy me over a maid, she said. Mr. Okafor replied quietly. She's not just a maid anymore. Mrs. Ivy turned sharply toward Zara, her eyes blazing with rage and fear. You think you've won, she said. But you don't know the last thing I'm capable of. That night, as Zara lay awake, the mansion silent again. Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. If you want your father's name cleared, come alone. Attached was a location. And a time. Tomorrow. Zara stared at the message, heart pounding, knowing one thing for sure. Whatever waited for her tomorrow would change everything. Zara did not sleep that night. She sat on her bed, phone in her hand, staring at the message over and over again. If you want your father's name cleared, come alone. Her heart pulled in two directions. If she went, she could finally give her father the justice he never lived to see. If she didn't, the truth might stay buried forever. But she also knew something else. Mrs. Evie never played fair. At dawn, Zara stood up, dressed slowly, and took a deep breath. She was going. The location led her to the old estate, the place where the first house once stood before the mansion was rebuilt. It was quiet. Too quiet. Tall grass surrounded the abandoned building. The walls were cracked. Time had eaten away its beauty, leaving only memory behind. Zara stepped inside carefully. Hello, she called. Her voice echoed. Then she heard clapping. Slow. Mocking. Mrs. Evie stepped out from the shadows. She was not dressed in silk today. No jewelry, no perfume, just a plain black dress. You came, Mrs. Ivy said. I knew you would. Zara's heart raced, but her voice stayed calm. You said you would clear my father's name. Mrs. Ivy smiled. Straight to business. I like that. She walked closer. Your father was stubborn, Mrs. Ivy said. Just like you. He could have confessed and gone quietly, but he wanted dignity. Zara's eyes burned. He wanted the truth. Mrs. Evie's smile faded slightly. Yes, she admitted. And truth is dangerous. Zara clenched her fists. Why did you do it? Mrs. Evie looked away briefly. I was young, she said. Power tasted sweet. Fear kept people obedient. Your father refused to bow. Zara swallowed hard. And now? Zara asked. What do you want now? Mrs. Evie turned back to her. I want silence, she said. I want you to walk away. I will release a statement clearing your father's name. Quietly. Zara's heart skipped. But? Zara asked. But you leave this house, Mrs. Evie continued. You stop talking. You disappear. Zara shook her head slowly. No. Mrs. Ivy's eyes hardened. Don't be foolish. I won't trade one truth for another lie, Zara said. My father wasn't the only one. Mrs. Evie laughed sharply. You think people care? They will, Zara said softly. When they hear the whole story. Mrs. Evie stepped closer, her voice cold. You think my husband will believe everything? Zara lifted her phone. I think he already does. Mrs. Evie froze. Zara pressed play. Mr. Okafor's voice filled the old room. Ivy. How many people did you ruin to keep control? There was silence on the recording. Then Mrs. Evie's own voice. They were nothing. Staff come and go. Mrs. Ivy's face drained of color. You recorded me, she whispered. Yes, Zara said. The quietest voice hears the loudest truths. Footsteps echoed outside. Mr. Okafor walked in. Behind him were security officers. Mrs. Ivy turned slowly. Disbelief written all over her face. You followed her, she said. No, Mr. Okafor replied. I listened to her. He looked at Zara. You weren't alone, he said gently. Mrs. Evie laughed, broken and sharp. So this is how it ends, she asked. Mr. Okafor's voice was calm but firm. This is how it begins, he said. With truth. Mrs. Evie's shoulders sagged. For the first time, the fear she ruled with turned against her. Days later, the mansion felt different, lighter. Jamiu returned to work not as a gatekeeper, but as a respected elder with full benefits restored. A public apology was issued. Not hidden. Not quiet. Zara stood beside Mr. Okafor as he addressed the staff. This house will no longer be ruled by fear, he said. Respect will replace it. Eyes turned to Zara. Some with gratitude. Some with disbelief. Mrs. Ivy was gone. Not shouted out. Not dragged. Removed. Her power ended the same way it ruled quietly. Later that evening, Zara stood alone in the garden. Mr. Okafor joined her. "You changed this place," he said. Zara shook her head. "No," she replied. "It was already broken. I just refused to stay silent." He smiled slightly. "You don't have to be a maid anymore," he said. Zara looked at him. "Good," she said, "because my work isn't finished." Mr. Okafor raised an eyebrow. Zara looked at the mansion at the windows where fear once lived. "Some voices are still quiet," she said, "and they need to be heard." The wind moved through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a door closed. And for the first time in that mansion's long history, fear did not follow it. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.